Hello again, rail fans. You know, we all have those times when we have a free day to get out there rail fanning, but have no plan and really no place to go. Now, in February 2025, I had such a day. It turned into 2 days, actually, during the week. Lots of time, but no plan. But the weather in Central Florida in February is usually spectacular, and it was on this weekend. So I charged up the batteries, cleared off the SD cards, and headed out there just to catch whatever I could. Started out with a little local, but ended the day with a Heritage unit catch. Retirement from my TV job has freed up mornings like this one for me. A Friday in late February, though with the temperature in the low 40s, it's chillier than normal for us this year. I'm in Tampa's old industrial section just east of Ybor City. The neighborhood is called Gary. The track is sure enough A-line, Richmond, Virginia to about a mile from here at Tampa Union Station. This is the junction where the old Thanota-Sassa sub branches off and heads up to Vitus Junction. This old Gary to Vitus, Maine is now an industrial track called the Navy Spur. CSX keeps the spur because there are plenty of customers on it. I've sat up here after hearing a crew get permission to come off the Navy via the south leg of the Y, then shoved back into Yeoman Yard. This is the same Y that Amtrak uses every day to turn its trains and back into Tampa Union Station. He's running under 4 miles per hour now, slow enough that a person can safely dismount the train to the ground. If you look closely, you can see that conductor climb down from the train. He'll count the engineer forward until the whole train is past the south leg switch. This will trigger an automatic sequence the dispatcher has stacked in to line the switch back to normal and the signal to permit him to move toward the yard. The conductor rides the bottom of the train, calling out track conditions ahead, clear for 20 car lengths, clear for 50, etc. He'll also call out the status of crossing signals, switches, or any obstructions that appear on the track ahead. For this backing move, the crew is on the radio, but later on I'll show you a really quick example of how crews switch to hand signals sometimes and why they do that. They're backing the consist because of a need to drop the cars in certain tracks without blocking the engine's path to get back out of those tracks. Y30120 is almost all boxcars this morning. There are all kinds of customers along the Navy Spur.
Wave it that go when you go by. Joey's on your side.
I had to break off to do some chores and some bank business back near home, but around 1400 I was back out at Navy. First thing I heard on the radio was a job coming out of Yeoman asking the dispatcher to set him up to spin the Navy Y and come back into the yard. He was B79618. This was power for an empty ethanol unit train that would be leaving Tampa. Road freights into Tampa don't just stop here and then keep on going somewhere else, as can happen in places like Jacksonville, Waycross, Louisville, and other places. One whole side of the Tampa terminal is bounded by salt water. So, excepting for 3 dead-end branch lines, everything into Tampa must turn around and go back out the same way it came in. And right here is where most of the turning around happens, the Navy Y. The lash-up is 2 GE ES44AHs. It's the second one that's catching all the interest today, number 1967, CSX's Seaboard Coastline Heritage locomotive. It's always kind of cool to catch one of these Heritage engines squarely in Heritage territory. And you don't get any more SCL than right here in the heart of Atlantic coastline trackage. The 2 engines are running nose to tail, elephant style in the vernacular. Great for photos, but not so good for running into a stub-in terminal. Right now, both locomotives are pointed south, and therefore they'll have to be turned to lead a northbound train. The turning operation adds about a half an hour to the departure preparations. Running a pair of lead locomotives back-to-back into Tampa would have saved this old turning around process. I did a whole video on that subject a few years back. You can click on it here, but don't do that yet. It takes a minute or two, but the dispatch system soon sequences the switch here at the stem of the Y and reverses it, allowing the engines to now move back onto the south leg of the Y. As they get back out to the main line, they are now pointed northward and ready to pull the train that way. Two and 3/4 miles away, we're near the north end of Yeoman Yard, where B796 is doing last-minute chores for departure. They came in on the old main, the track nearest to the camera, but they have to shift over 4 tracks to reach their train. That took a trip up to the northern tip of the yard and a couple of hand-throw switches to get back down here. Now he's backing onto the empty ethanol tank train and will soon be ready to pull out. But now there's another train coming up that needs to use one of the tracks on B796's route out of the yard. So, in the spirit of cooperation, the 796 conductor walks up and lines the switch for L700, daily local switcher to Bradenton and back. 700 brings priority Tropicana juice traffic up from their plant in Bradenton. Those will go on tonight's train I-044, fast intermodal to Duval Ramp in Jacksonville. From there, the Trops will go out on a fast intermodal to New Jersey. This yard maneuver required L700 to come in one side of the yard, run all the way up here to the northern yard lead, then come down on the other side of the yard to reach the piggyback ramp. Meanwhile, the B796 conductor is dealing with another chore, pulling out a bad order car. That's why the conductor is watching the consist pass. He's counting the cars and watching for the number of the car in question. Bad order is railroad slang for a piece of equipment in need of repair. On a rail car, bad orders can be stuck brakes, leaky airline, noisy hub, severe flat wheel, and a dozen other things. Today's bad order car is near the middle of the train and must be removed from the consist. This is a time-consuming maneuver. When the conductor sees the bad car, he calls for a stop and 3-step protection. He then climbs up on the tank car's porch and ratchets down the handbrake. Then he pulls the coupler pin and calls the engineer to pull ahead. Now he's riding the bad order car, pulling up to the next yard switch. Now B796 is backing down onto the next track over, where a cut of other bad order cars are standing. And about 30 minutes from where this maneuver began, B796 backs down to finally make his train solid and ready to go, minus the bad order car. A call for 3-step protection and the handbrake is released. The air brake line is laced up, and I skedaddle to a place where I know I can shoot the train running out on the main line. That spot is out at Plant City on State Road 39A, about a mile north of the Plant City siding. We're right across the road from a U-Pick strawberry farm. It's mid-February and the height of Plant City's winter strawberry season. At 1612, here comes B796, northbound empty tanks, headed to Linden, Indiana for more ethanol. I made it out again on Sunday morning. Following the radio, I chased B339 coming in from the Bone Valley with a load of wet rock phosphate. Leading the train are two modernized AC 4400 CW locomotives, specially fitted to burn a diesel mix containing 20% soybean oil. There are 10 of these Wabtec refurbished engines in service in the Tampa area, mostly in Bone Valley mine service. It's a test program to see how well biodiesel fuel works in railroad locomotives. The compressed springs on the trucks tell us these are all loaded hoppers, but you don't really need the springs for that. You can just look up on top of the cars and see that phosphate piled up in there. B339 is delivering wet rock phosphate to this mosaic plant on US 41 on the eastern shore of Tampa Bay. The material comes out of the Four Corners mine in southeastern Hillsborough County. At this plant, the material is processed into a finished form that's usable for fertilizer. Newcomers to the growing southern Hillsborough County area may not be used to the railroad crossings. US 41 from Interstate 4 in Tampa to the Manatee County line has 5 level railroad crossings, all of them used daily, and some, like here, with very long, slow trains. Finally, after 10.5 minutes, the end of train B339 is coming across US 41. "25 minutes later, I'm back up in the Ybor City District at 34th Street to catch a transfer job to Hooker's Point on Port Tampa Bay. Some loads and some empties. These are bound for the McCloskey Yard at the port. 3 blocks north of there is where we started out on Friday, or pretty near it. This is the signal for the south leg of the Navy Y. I love this spot because even though CSX has almost eliminated all artifacts of the old ACL and SAL days, they haven't got them all yet. Those 2 concrete foundations once supported a cantilever tower that held searchlight signals for the Atlantic coastline. There are 4 of these concrete foundations here at one time. The other 2 must have been removed for track work or fiber optic line installation. I moved on toward Adamo Drive after hearing a northbound L700 coming that way from working the AZA line. I made it to the crossing just before 700 got there. He was coming in, engines light, no cars, with 2 more AC 4400 CW rebuilds. CSX has given the modernized engines new designations. The 7266 is a CM44AC, the 7509 a CM44AH. I believe the H is for heavy or possibly high adhesion. Moving back around to the west side of the yard, I got stopped by a local. Now this guy had to be working a customer nearby.
Dispatcher.
L75523, Jeff.
755.
Yes, sir. The 6510. They have the usual key in to the 855.0 and the one switch, 853.7.
So that cleared up which way he was headed. The SY 853.7 is the north leg of the Drew Spur on the Clearwater Sub. But there are lots of customers around that area. He could be headed to any of them. I beat it up 40th Street to intercept him on the old TN side of the Clearwater Sub. A wide open spot is the Henry Avenue crossing at the north end of Parker Passing Siding. Once a very busy industry neighborhood, this part of West Tampa has seen much of its industry leave or close down altogether. L755 was all jumbo-covered hoppers, the kind that looked like they carry plastic pellets. I knew several plastic manufacturers in the Drew area. I checked out 2 of them with no luck. Then I heard L755's crew on the radio.
96510, clear up. Riding release 3, 8 hit. Oh, yeah.
I found them at a company called Atcor. Deciding to get off the radio and switch to hand signals, and coming around the curve, the conductor rode the bottom and gave a brief display of those hand signals. Watch him count down the car lengths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. 1, 2, 3 cars. 1, 2 cars. 1 more car. A circular motion perpendicular to the track means keep backing slower, then swinging his hand back and forth perpendicular to the track is stop. Hand signals are sometimes easier than radio when the conductor is close to the engineer, but for the final move of spotting these cars, he'll be out of sight, so it's back to the radio.
Just push on him. Give me about 3 feet if you can. Just a little bit offset him here.
After spotting the 2 cars, they pull ahead and head for home. That is the first time I've ever seen hand signals done just that way, especially with the counting cars. Very cool. Really glad I caught that. Got a new sign on the fence back there. SCL LNN, Georgia, Clinchfield, West Point Route, Family Line sign. Now this one came from David Howard at the Jacksonville Train Show in February. He and I did a little horse trading up there. Picked up that one. If you're at a train show in Jacksonville or elsewhere in the South where David goes, be sure to stop at his booth. He has some really cool stuff, unusual stuff, especially if you're one of those switch lantern collectors. He's got every one in the book, or a whole bunch of them, and they're always in really good shape, so check that out. That almost completes my Seaboard System genealogy. All I'm lacking now is an Atlantic Coastline 6-state Herald, so I'm still in the hunt for that. Okay, you folks, please do me a favor. Stay 25 feet back from the tracks at all times. That'll keep you safe. Please do that just as a favor to me. Now hit the like button if you like this video, maybe even if you didn't like it so much. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Please share the video with your friends. That really helps a lot. And make some time in your schedule really soon for us to meet up again somewhere out there on the high iron. And until we do, this is Danny Harmon, out.